Hey, how's everyone doing today? Let me ask you a question. If I asked you, or if I made a statement that said something like, hey, I have a flat, um, you may ask me, um, well, where's your car at? And I can help you get you back on the road. Or do you need help changing your flat tire? When I hear that here in my part of the world, this is what comes to me. But yet, if you were to go to Canada, just one country, if you were to go to Canada and say, I have a flat, it would then change to now, um, I have a house. That's what that would mean there. So what am I saying? I'm saying that words carry weight and meaning in different cultures depending upon where they're used at. Okay. And philosophy behind those words carry weight. Okay. Let me give you well, maybe not that one. That's enough. Okay. But here's my point. My point is that we have to understand the framework that a culture is in, okay, in order to understand what those words mean for them, okay? Listen, we cannot take words and then throw our 21st century spin on it. This is what we think it means. And it's only in church culture that we do this. Many times, and what I'm going to talk about briefly is really about end time things. Okay. Now, this is not going to be a deep, intensive thing on this today at all. This is going to be a barely even scratch the surface. I'm just going to bring out a couple of things to highlight some things. That's all we're going to do. Really, this really takes a paradigm shift to get proper understanding of what I'm talking about. If you really wanted to be able to teach other people, show somebody else, hey, let me encourage you with this. Because what happens is anytime war happens and anywhere and things happen, the first thing that people begin to talk about is, man, this is a sign of the times. Like, all the while, destruction is a sign of the times. But let me share something with you that was said, that Jesus said, okay? If I can find this here. This is in John, okay? And Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he's talking about that when when a woman gives birth, in that process, she's in pain. But when the child comes forth, the pain is remembered no more. Scripture says in Romans that the earth is in birth pains, waiting for the appearing and the manifestation of the sons of God. Our happiness about wars and things that happen are, wow, destruction's getting ready to happen. The Lord must be coming back. Now, when you start from that premise, a red flag should go off about where our mindset about how we see God is. Okay. To be honest with you, I'll have to do that on another video because I don't want to waste time trying to find it because I'm not going to be on here long. But check this out. Matthew 24:3 says this. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Okay. Now, some translations say of the end of the world. Okay. That's actually a very poor translation for that. Okay. Because there's a few different words for world in scripture, and they do not all mean the same thing. Okay. Particularly in this verse here. Okay. Some translations will say world. Other translations will say what I've read here, age, which is a better rendering of it. But here's what that word means. That's a word, it's called eon, okay? And it means a cycle of time. Not world, global, cosmos. John 3:16, for God so loved the cosmos. That's that word, world. But here, when will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Now, there's another thing that's thrown in there, sign of your coming. One thing that we get really wrong in our westernized understanding of Scripture is, again, we try to take a literal meaning when we read it, and we say this is what that means because that's how we're taught to define things. But in Scripture, the Bible was written from an Eastern perspective context. And the focus, listen, when you read the words from their perspective, how they would have understood it, their focus is on what the motive and intent is behind it. And when this was said to an audience that would have known what Jesus was talking about at that time. As a Jew, if you made a statement of your coming or sign of your coming or coming on the clouds, here, let me just throw this out here. Most of our misinterpretation and misunderstanding in Western understanding concerning the end times is we don't understand Jewish culture and we don't understand prophecy from their perspective. And we rip things out of its context. Do you realize starting in Matthew 24, you already start out of context because it was in the middle of a thought. You have to go way back a couple of chapters to actually get the full context before you even arrive here. And when they said sign of your coming, again, that was a prophetic understanding that they would have understood. And it did not mean a literal physical appearing and coming of Jesus. Now, I will say this. I am not saying that I am not a believer in Jesus returning. I do believe in the return of Jesus, but my perspective is a bit more optimistic. I would probably be considered more of a partial preterist that's out there, because I still believe in an actual return of Jesus. But here we go. So what Jesus was referencing and talking about here was talking about the end of the times that they were living in. The times that the Jews were living in were under the Mosaic covenant. And they were asking what should be the sign of the end of these times, not world. Okay, now that that's out there. Now, you don't have to believe me. You can listen, I've had conversations with friends of mine and we have ended up at a stalemate. And I'm okay with that. Listen, I don't see you any different, and they don't see me any different. At least the friends of mine don't. But I'm just sharing with you, do your own study, check it out, look up different words of world and do the study, the research. Most don't do that. And so a generation in Scripture was like 40 years. And so during this time when Jesus said that, it would have been about 40 years afterwards that the destruction of the temple was hit. And thus, according to Jewish culture, would have been the fulfillment of that. One of the things in Jewish writing, they use a lot of, they think more of in block logic. We think in linear line pattern, and that makes a huge difference. Okay? And they use imagery and metaphors to speak about something, okay? We use more of abstract concepts. Like, for instance, we could say God is love, and they will say God's love is like a strong tower. See how that works? They used an image, a concrete image, to describe something that they were talking about, and this is how they wrote all the time, okay? So that's where I'm going to stop for today. I've gone over my time of what I really wanted to, but I just wanted to briefly put this out here and just encourage someone that if you've been told or you are afraid that, man, maybe this is the end, what do I do? Let me encourage you that, no, not in the sense like maybe you're being told it is. And I know a lot of people would refute me on that. No, Chris, you're wrong because this, that, and the other, and that's fine. That's completely fine if that's where you're at. But I'm sharing my point of view on this and the history of where I've studied this out at. I am open to correction, or we can dialogue and discuss some things. However, but just know this, that God's plan is not to completely ravage and destroy the earth. That's another subject. Let me give you a hint. God is the creator of all things. I want you to take some time and create something really beautiful. And then I want you to just effortlessly wreck it. Now, all right, that's it. I'm going to stop. Have a great day. Remember, you are loved.